On today's episode, we have Ben Terrill, head of customer success at CISO. Ben has been in CS for 15 years. Prior to CISO, he spent 5.5 years at Brex, where he built the CS org from scratch. Ben, really happy to have you on the call today and to have a good conversation.
Love to be here. Thanks, Mikey.
So could you, as you know the structure, we go through a blind spot, a challenge that you faced in your time in the trenches in the CS world. Before we get too deep into the story, can you maybe set some context of what was your organization like at the time that said problem came up, and then we'll get into the nitty gritty.
Yeah, I mean, so CISO, we're in the agriculture business. We're delivering software and services to farmers. I have 8 CSMs that are working every day with our customers, focusing predominantly on retention, but also handling service adoption issues. We're a remote company, so I can't at any point see exactly what individuals are working on. And we had a variety of things going on. One was lack of visibility into what CSMs were doing during the day. We were getting a lot of anecdotal feedback that there was burnout, that there was stress. That didn't necessarily seem to tie to which CSMs had more customers, for example. And so we really didn't know what was going on, and needed to figure out a way to understand who's doing what they're doing, and then validate some of the anecdotal feedback we were getting around burnout and level of effort that was going into things.
So the problem that you were facing at the time, it sounds like through the grapevine, just like the anecdotal, hey, I'm burning out. Were you seeing any customer facing impact, or is it more like an internal problem that you were looking to solve?
Yeah, I mean, and I think a lot of CS leaders or support leaders will identify this. Is sometimes you get well, I didn't get a response from this CSM in X period of time, right? And sometimes I think there's validity to that, and sometimes you kind of peel back the tape and it's, well, you messaged us in the middle of the night and we responded in the morning. And so it's really hard to play whack-a-mole and chase all those different instances down. And so I think we were seeing a little bit of that. What as a CS leader and as somebody who believes in retaining good customer success people for a long period of time, and that's really instrumental to a business, what I was seeing was burnout risk. And I never want to see that in my people. I think certain times of the year you're going to see a little bit of that, but we can't do that for a long period of time. And so I was seeing that, and I was wondering, well, is this individual just putting in too many hours? Is there areas where this individual could be more efficient? Are there other dynamics going on, struggling with technology, with our workflows, that sort of thing? And those are the questions I really was trying to answer, and really couldn't do so prior to LumaPath.
I always love when we're part of the solution. So can you maybe walk through a little bit more about, how you dove in and kind of started peeling back the layers of that challenge?
Yeah, I mean, so the first thing was just hours worked, right? Like, how many hours a day is an individual putting in? As I mentioned, I kind of believe that there is an upper limit to that, that you really can't sustain over a long period of time. So we first looked at that across the team. I think we discovered that the working patterns of our team differed quite a bit between individuals. And what I mean by that is some individuals might do like a solid 8 or 9 hour work day, right? Maybe they're stepping up to go to lunch, but they're just literally in front of their computer working all day. Others might work like a moderate work day, and then when the kids go to bed, put 2 or 3 hours in over the evening. And we were beginning to see that like some of those behaviors were a little bit unexpected to me. I tend to build a culture of trust and aren't forcing people to be at their desk a certain period. So being able to uncover that was really helpful. The next one that I think was a bit of an aha moment for us was that CSMs were spending wildly different amounts of time engaging with customers. Some CSMs would much prefer to write a long, detailed email that encounters an issue. Others were much more willing to pick up a phone and just jump on a call. And we certainly did see differences in how we were experiencing the customer relationship based on how certain CSMs engaged with their customers. A big learning from that was that we should always have a bias to pick up the phone. Our customers are farmers. They're, maybe calling us from the back of a tractor or that sort of thing. And
Mhm.
picking up a phone, hearing a voice, solving an issue in 1 or 2 minutes is a much better experience for them than a, detailed email. And so through some of the learnings we made, we are able to sort of guide the team towards making more of those sort of real-time decisions that we think actually help the customer relationship.
Interesting. And can you maybe, for folks that are, we don't have to really get into Lumopath necessarily specifically, but just like the problem and the learning that you had of those differentiated patterns of how people were servicing their customers, like, can you maybe just get even a layer deeper into like what was that learning process like like how did you even see or articulate what some of them were doing versus the others and connect that to the burnout problem?
Well, I think what we were seeing was like you sort of have this metadata associated with accounts that to me indicates the strength of the relationship. For example, if a customer is thinking of choosing another solution, I would say if you've got a strong relationship with that account, they're going to tell you. They're going to say, hey, my boss is considering another solution, and we're going to get an at-bat to try and retain the account.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas other accounts might just churn, right? Maybe
Yeah.
maybe we've got some signal in there, but they aren't telling us directly. We found that the customers that were willing to tell us in advance that hey, we might be thinking about another solution also happened to be the customers with CSMs that were having a high level of sort of ad hoc, personal, one-on-one phone engagement. And so that really, and that was an insight that we didn't necessarily, we kind of knew these two things were happening, but we hadn't really connected the dots very well. And we were able to do so once we kind of cracked that data open and looked at it. I think another thing that is really valuable that we hadn't sort of understood prior was the cadence of working. Interestingly, individuals that were able to kind of like do a little bit of work in the evening and maybe free of distraction seem to be a lot less stressed than the ones who were just trying to do like a 10 or 12 hour like nonstop marathon Hercules shift.
Yeah.
Now that I suggest that individuals work after hours necessarily, but it is kind of interesting to sort of see like when we get those patterns, how does that interface with how the team's experiencing their job on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, that's super interesting. And specifically on that first point, because you originally kind of brought up the pain point of burnout. But it seems like the tendency and the openness to face-to-face communication was both resolving like an inefficient, slower way of interacting with customers that was driving burnout, as well as actually driving results because you're building more of a relationship with the customer that they're willing to notify you of things that might be blockers to renewal or upsell or whatnot. Am I hearing it that right? That it was kind of a twofold.
Exactly, and I
Revolution.
think as I mean, as a CS leader that's been doing this for some time, I have noticed that there is sometimes, particularly with maybe more junior staff, an aversion to getting on the phone. Right, there's a little bit of safety behind email where you can really think of a response, and sort of forcing like through this data, kind of forcing individuals to get on the phone more. I think really sort of counters what I've seen as a natural tendency behind some folks more junior in their career. And interestingly, when I talk to my team, what's the thing they enjoy more than anything else is interacting with our customers, right? And
Yeah.
so we've got this thing. It's like get on the phone more. Your job becomes easier. Your job becomes more enjoyable. Our customers become happier. So it's really quite a powerful insight that we were able to derive.
Yeah, and I'm curious how you operationalized it. Like, did you, like you said, you were getting people on the phone more? Like, what was the actual ask or requirement, or how did that turn into an actual change in behavior?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I've got a small org, so it's not particularly difficult to roll this sort of stuff out. On a large
Hmm.
org, like, probably would have like particular metrics, like you need to talk to X percent of your customers over X percent of time.
Hmm.
In a smaller org, we could really just have it as sort of more ad hoc conversations and one-on-ones.
Hmm.
LumaPath was actually interesting. It did allow us to pull out some data that said, well, you've talked to this percentage of your customers every month, and we've
Hmm.
been able to track that trend over time, so we know we're doing better.
Yeah.
But we didn't need to build like a robust scorecard or anything like that because we've got a small team, and I think we can address the hot spots more directly.
Yeah, and so the I guess one more question on the operationalizing of it is like, what does it mean to you getting in front of a customer? Because a lot of folks in the CS space are also balancing bandwidth constraints, and like in theory, they're saying I don't have time to get on a call with every one of my customers. So how do you balance the effectiveness of that approach with the reality of just only so many hours in the day?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's a bias. Like as you're writing out an email, hey, could I just call the customer and get this resolved in 2 seconds? If the answer is yes, pick up the phone and call them. Right? We're a bit unique. I mean, my experience is tech, where we're dealing with stakeholders that might be in 5 or 6 hour meetings every day, and so they're not going to
Right.
pick up their phone. But CISO's pretty unique in the sense that a lot of our customers aren't in as many meetings and can actually pick up the phone when you call them. Um, and so that's the first thing is like, could this be resolved in a phone call? Do that first, right? Once you start to develop that muscle memory, I think folks kind of get a little bit more more um, more willing to do so. Now the tricky flip side of that is if you're calling your customer all the time, your customers are probably normalized into calling you and
Right.
also expect you to answer the phone. And so there is sort of a bit of a double-edged sword there where um, we CSMs might not get a long period of uninterrupted concentration because the customer is calling them. But generally, again, that could have been an email. If that email comes in, that's going to take a lot longer to resolve than you just answering the phone for your customer. And so, I think in that way, some relationships are strengthened. So, in the end, it works out better.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And it's funny because so many people, like, there's I don't know if it's a meme, but it's like when you're in a meeting, it's like, could this have been an email? It really feels like you're flipping it on its head, and could this have been a call? But it makes a lot of sense of just understanding like what is the most efficient medium for communication in that moment, and understanding your customer and like where they want to meet you. It's not going to make sense to call CMO at a Fortune 500 company just every 15 minutes. But if you have someone that's working in a tractor and they're going to pick up the call, it makes a lot of sense to do it that way. So no,
Exactly, and I mean, and I think that's a really good point to drive home. Is this? I mean, this is a bit of a unique customer group, and you just can't take the model or the engagement patterns that you've had in the past and just apply them to in your customer group. And so I've had to learn that here, and the tooling like LumaPath really allowed us to sort of open up that insight that I don't think we would have got it anecdotally, but we wouldn't have got it in a quantitative way through other means, which has been pretty cool to see, and that's meant we've built like a methodology with our customers that differs probably from a traditional SaaS methodology.
Right, right. And any other impact of that, like it sounds like reduced burnout, it sounds like improved customer relations, like any way that you've continued to just kind of keep that flywheel going and make sure that you don't lose momentum on those improvements.
Well, I mean, another thing that just it is really been really helpful is like when I'm taking a business case to grow the team or further investment to the rest of leadership at CISO, we have data to back that up now. And in the past, it was kind of this anecdotal thing, and fair enough, there should be some skepticism against just anecdotal feedback. Now
Yeah.
we've kind of got the real data, and good for me as a leader, making sure my team is staffed properly. Great for my team that knows that we're now taking a methodological approach to adding new resources and growing the org. Where in the past maybe they didn't feel like that, they're burnt out, that sort of thing. So it just feels like there's a lot more confidence in our staffing strategy because we're able to do that based on data.
Yeah, it's always so interesting and counterproductive, I think, when teams that are concerned about understanding where time is going because it feels like Big Brother. I think if you have the right leaders and the right organization, like you're actually typically doing it to help advocate and support your team. If you're assuming positive intent and you're kind of taking it from that perspective. So it's cool to hear you walking the walk on better supporting your team by having this sort of information and that building
Yeah,
trust.
very fair. And I mean, one of the things before I rolled out a tool like this that I was a little cautious about was exactly that. Is the team going to feel like we're monitoring them? Are we Big Brother? Are we keeping an eye on what they're doing? But now they're able to sort of see the other side of that. It's like, well, I don't need to put my hand up and say I'm screaming busy all the time because there's data doing that. I don't like,
Yeah.
which is, and I've seen very little resistance from our org in terms of feeling like they're being monitored for anything other than good intentions to help make sure we're staffing the team properly.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome to hear. Any main takeaway you'd want to that you took, or that you'd want others to take from this experience that you had?
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is a pretty cool space right now, and there is a lot of benefit in a more in coordinating between, in this case, like all of our post sales orgs. And so we're trying to roll this tool out in particular to everybody at CISO, this post acquisition, because we're a pretty heavy services related business, and there's a lot of hotspots that crop up over time. And so I think the sooner you can do that, the sooner you can have sort of a consolidated view of what your post acquisition activity looks like, and the sooner you can kind of bring everybody in, the sooner you're going to see value. I mean, for me, we have a few other teams in this right now, and we can look at sort of how busy those teams are as a test to say, okay, should we expect them to be hitting SLAs right now? Or are they going to be a little bit delayed? And we can kind of pump the brakes and adjust our behavior accordingly without having to, have these sort of big complicated activities. So my advice to leaders is to sort of think about how you're kind of connecting this with other parts of your post sales org, and try and use a consolidated strategy.
Yeah, makes a ton of sense, and definitely something we're doing. We're obviously earlier in our journey as a company than CISO, but from the first hire on the CS side, it's like, how do we make sure that we know what we need to build out? How do we structure the organization, and just do it from a position of informed data around activity? It just makes you a better strategist as you build out the company. And yeah, totally agree with that takeaway. So so it sounds like, for you, a large piece of the puzzle that was missing and that has become more useful for you is just the general context and visibility into like what is making the machine work. And you gave one example, for instance, around the capacity burnout, where effort is going, and that tying to customer outcomes and reducing burnout. But like anything else that you're monitoring or just trying to stay ahead of as you continue to build out, scale, and manage your organization?
Yeah, well, I think every CS leader in the world will identify with this as like your own burnout as a CS leader is also something you should be aware of, right? And these jobs require such a high cognitive demand. You're consuming information all the time. You're filtering whether this is important or not. You're filtering whether you should act or not. You're filtering on whether you should get involved or you should let your team handle it. And it's coming in more channels than it's ever come in before, right? It's coming in on Slack. It's coming in on email. Maybe there's messaging. Maybe there's like comments on a Google or a Notion page, like all these sort of sources. And so what I found recently is the ability to summarize, the ability to use AI to summarize that information in a concise way that you can consume, that it does a lot of that initial thinking, is this important or not, should I get involved, into a way that you can really digest it, has been just a huge unlock for me. Like a lot of folks probably, go to bed at night thinking, has there anything I missed today? Was there a Slack message I didn't read? Is there a churn I wasn't aware of? And having sort of an agent step in and kind of do all that work for me and compile it in a concise way that I can consume or forward it off to somebody else has just been the most incredible productivity unlock that I could think of as a CS leader. So really, really cool stuff with AI these days.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense, and has become, for us, in large part, like a central part of what we've built out as a product, is how do you push out that information? Because you hear it time and again, like it's not enough for it to be interesting, valuable, like even the most valuable product, unless it is being delivered to you in the moments that matter and like taking work off your plate. If it is adding another thing you need to proactively do right now, it is not going to deliver value. And to us, we've really taken that to heart from our customers. So
yeah, and like we talk about a lot, but it's time savings, but I think like cognitive load savings is another way to look at some of this stuff. And I would say most SaaS doesn't solve that, right? It's more, we're going to present data for you and you can consume and you can parse it, but like actually having like some level of like intelligent engine to tell you the things that you should care about in a really concise way is just incredibly powerful.
Yeah. Well, glad that that's resonating with you, and we are continuing to bet on it internally. So appreciate you being someone that's finding value out of it. So thank you so much for the time. This was awesome, thoughtful conversation as always, and looking forward to more of them in the future.
Love it, Mikey. Thanks, man. Always good talking to you.
Ditto.